In July of 2024, a 54-year-old man named Dan Rivera left work early, complaining of a sudden illness. Hours later, he was found unresponsive in his Gettysburg hotel room. Police found no evidence of foul play and ruled the death natural, but the incident carries a chilling context. Rivera was the official handler responsible for encasing and transporting the real-life Annabelle doll. The physical artifact is a mass-produced cloth toy with yarn hair, far removed from the cracked porcelain seen in the movies. Yet for 50 years, investigators have maintained a perimeter around this object, warning that it is the most volatile item in their collection. To manage that risk, demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren built a customized glass cabinet, had it repeatedly blessed by priests, and locked the doll inside. They established a strict containment protocol and mounted a sign on the wood that read, "Positively do not open." Those rules have been abandoned. Following the closure of the Warren's Occult Museum, the surviving heirs extracted the doll from its protective enclosure, packed it into a portable travel case, and took it on a public cross-country tour. By breaking a half-century-old containment protocol, the current caretakers have dismantled the only barrier keeping the public separate from the artifact. The question now is whether a century-old curse has been actively unleashed on a new generation of victims. To understand how this cloth toy operates, we have to look at the incident that forced it into quarantine. In 1970, a 28-year-old nursing student named Donna Jennings received the vintage Raggedy Ann as a gift and brought it back to the Hartford apartment she shared with her roommate, Angie. Within days, the women reported bizarre activity. They would return from long hospital shifts to find the doll sitting in different postures or moved entirely into different rooms. Soon, they began finding handwritten notes scattered around the apartment in a child's scrawl, reading, "Help Lou." Lou was Angie's fiancé. He openly despised the doll, and his skepticism was met with physical retaliation. Lou reported waking up from a vivid nightmare where the doll was strangling him, only to look down and find deep, bloody claw marks freshly gouged into his chest. The nurses sought help from the church, eventually bringing in Ed and Lorraine Warren. After examining the apartment, the investigators delivered a terrifying diagnosis. The nurses were not dealing with the lonely ghost of a little girl. The Warrens operated on a strict theological premise. Demonic entities do not possess inanimate objects. Instead, they use items like the doll as physical conduits to deceive, manipulate, and eventually possess a living human host. That parasitic behavior pattern appears repeatedly in the historical record. In May 1953, a 40-year-old man named Douglas Adams slashed the throats of his wife and 12-year-old daughter inside their Portland, Maine apartment. Adams had no history of violence and offered police zero motive for the slaughter. When investigators processed the blood-soaked apartment, they documented a highly specific anomaly. Placed neatly in a chair, perfectly angled to watch the murder of the youngest victim, sat a pristine Raggedy Ann doll. The lineage of this specific toy design traces back to the quiet suburbs of Indianapolis in 1915, when it was originally stitched together by a political cartoonist named Johnny Gruelle. Gruelle did not invent the toy for retail. His 14-year-old daughter, Marcella, had fallen gravely ill after receiving a smallpox vaccine. To comfort her on her deathbed, he pulled an old rag doll from the attic, painted a face on it, and gave it to her. She died a few weeks later. From a child's fatal illness in 1915, to a family massacre in 1953, to a violent infestation in 1970. This object has functioned as a silent witness to death for over a century, cementing the necessity of the Warrens' original glass case. The system worked as long as the Wardens were alive, but Lorraine Warren passed away in 2019, and the ironclad protocol she and her husband established began to dissolve. By August 2020, with the world already crippled by pandemic lockdowns, a mistranslated interview from an actress sparked a viral rumor that the doll had physically broken out of the museum. The internet erupted in wide-scale panic. When the new caretakers finally did take the doll out of the museum for the Devils on the Run tour, chaos followed the route. Days after a viewing event in New Orleans, 11 inmates escaped a nearby facility, and the largest sugarcane plantation in Louisiana burned to the ground. This chart maps out a psychological glitch known as the uncanny valley. As a non-human object looks increasingly human, our affinity for it rises. But right before it reaches perfect realism, our comfort plummets into a zone of intense dread and revulsion. Because of pareidolia, our brains are hardwired to assign human intent to inanimate faces. If a mass audience deeply believes an object is watching them, the resulting hysteria will manifest real-world panic. The threat does not have to be a literal demon to inflict damage. Despite the psychological contagion and the history of reported danger, the warnings continue to be ignored. In August 2025, comedian Matt Rife announced that he and a partner had purchased guardianship of the Warrens' property, intending to turn the occult museum into a commercial AirBnB. The sanctuary is now open for bookings. The protective glass case is empty. Whether you believe in a literal demonic entity looking for a host, or the sheer destructive power of human paranoia, the object has been officially invited back into the world.